Hello and welcome to another edition of Power of the Pen. I am Luana Bradford with the Bradford Group as well as the Bradford Group Consulting, and I am excited about being here with you today. I enjoy sharing authors, recommended reads, amazing books, but today I'm even more excited because this is in my wheelhouse, which is the financial conversation and an amazing financial book entitled Prince Charming Isn't Coming by Barbara Stanny. And I have an amazing guest, Miss Tracy Oriomi, and I'm going to make a change here with get her name correct. There we go. I'm going to do this one more time, Tracy. That's what I love about pre-records. I can always start over. Here we go. Hello and welcome to another edition of Power of the Pen. I am Luana Bradford with the Bradford Group and principal of the Bradford Group Consulting. And I am so excited to be here with you again for another amazing edition of this show where we get to spotlight authors, amazing books, recommended reads. And today I'm even extra excited because we are talking about a book that touches on finance. And those of you who know anything about me, you know, being a mortgage broker or financial analyst, this is in my wheelhouse. And we have the amazing How Money Works consultant, Miss Tracy Oriomi, who will be joining us shortly. And I also want to just pause for a moment to say that when we think about our physical well-being, our emotional well-being, our mental well-being, we have to also think about that financial well-being as well. Because when our financial house isn't in order, it can create stress, anxiety, and then we start to have that snowball effect. And one of the things that I love about my prior discussions with Tracy is just her deep knowledge in not only what is happening right now in the economy, but more importantly, what is happening with women in finances. And we're going to start off talking a little bit about some statistics, getting us all grounded on the same page, and then we're going to do a deep dive into the book. So I am going to bring Tracy to the stage. Tracy, how's it going?
Going amazing, Luana. Good to see you. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you for saying yes. I've been watching you. You've been traveling all over, rocking and rolling. You were at the Hamptons, and I think it's great that your lifestyle and your business allows you to expand, explore, and just really level up things for yourself, right?
Absolutely. I just think it's so important to continue to learn, continue to grow, continue to develop ourselves, because there's information is always changing. It's so much to learn. And I'm all about continuing to, know what's going on in my industry.
Yes. Well, Tracy is a financial wizard. She says she is the How Money Works consultant, and her company is affiliated with Wealth Waves, which is on a mission to help increase the financial literacy of people around the world. And Tracy has a specific passion as it relates to women. She is also an amazing contributor within the Celebrate You Women Embracing Wellness community, where she comes on weekly and gives those financial tips. You'll also see her throughout social media, just knocking on your virtual door, telling you all of these amazing things that you may not know or not even have the insight to ask the right questions. But she is there doing the work for you so that you can level up your finances for today, to build for your future self, as she likes to say, to have that sleep at night money, that peace when you lay your head down at night. So, Tracy, tell us about, we're right now, we know the world is kind of like up in arms with what's going on with the stock market and interest rates, and no one knows what's going on. And we know that the pandemic, even before this, had a disproportionate impact on women because of the industries that were most hit. Women occupied many of those positions. Also, women were and still are sandwiched between taking care of children, taking care of aging parents, not planning, as aggressively for retirement as our male counterparts. And I know there's some other pretty shocking statistics out there. And can you share a few of those for us?
Absolutely. Thank you, Luana. You know, like you said, there are so many shocking statistics out there. And one of the statistics, that is quite troubling to me is that 80% of the elderly poor are women. 80%. And 7 out of 10 of us, Luana, will never retire. And that is because we can't afford it. It's one thing if you want to continue to work, because you want to. But there are so many women out there that are working because they can't afford not to. They have to continue to work. So that's why I tell women that it's so important to pay yourself first. It's so important to pay yourself first. Treat your savings like a monthly bill that you have to pay. Treat it as if it's a monthly bill. Make sure you pay yourself first, right off the top. And some people say, well, how much should I be saving? What is that amount? Whatever is comfortable for you, whatever you can afford. A good rule of thumb is 10%. But if you can only afford 5%, 1%, whatever you can afford, pay yourself first so that you're not a financial statistic.
And I like what you said, because just that simple statement, pay what you can afford, is giving people grace. We don't feel like we have to do a certain amount. It's what is comfortable, but the key is being consistent, right, Tracy?
Absolutely. You have to be consistent. There's something called dollar cost averaging. If you're just consistent, putting in that certain amount on a consistent basis over time, that money is going to grow and compound, and you're going to see the results down the road.
Now, this particular book by Barbara Stanny, she said the full title is Prince Charming Isn't Coming, How Women Get Smart About Money. And what I loved about this, just the title in and of itself, we think about, older generations, it was, about if you went to college, you're going to college to find a husband, right? Even though you're getting an education, your parents wanted to make sure that you found a husband. My parents, they've been married now 68 years.
Wow.
And when I talked to my mom, even though she did work, she worked later in life. She always will use terms like, well, I never had to worry because dad was always there to take care of everything, right? So it's, again, that Prince Charming mindset. But how many women today think that Prince Charming, someone's going to come in and they're on their white horse and just take care of everything financially for them?
I think women are becoming smarter today with money. I think that as a result of, what we have seen in the economy, as a result of what we've seen other people experience, we are getting a little smarter with money. And we are realizing that we do have to make sure that we take care of ourselves. But there are still a lot of women out there who are still waiting on that Prince Charming to come along, and save them financially. And the premise of the book is we cannot wait for someone to come along and save us. We have to do what is economically feasible and responsible for ourselves. We cannot put that on someone else. We have to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves financially.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I know when I was married, obviously you have this 2-income household, and then when you're divorced and that income is cut in half, I have to be honest, Tracy, for a little while, I questioned, can I do this on my own? Can I still maintain, and do I have the ability to do it? Because my husband, even though and this is the funny thing, I'm a financial analyst. I did it for business, right? But at home, he was the one that was managing everything. I knew where the bills, where the money was going, but as far as actually sitting there managing, that was what he did. But I did it on the workspace. But when we got divorced, I actually got scared. I became nervous, like, oh my gosh, can I do this?
And that's quite normal, Luana, because in a lot of households and a lot of marriages, women do leave that financial responsibility up to their husbands, because it's just something that historically speaking, women have allowed their husbands to control the finances. And even in the book, the author talks about women who were very powerful in the workforce, women working on Wall Street, handling, hundreds of millions of dollars for their clients. But when it came to their own finances, they didn't have that same attitude towards their finances. They weren't as comfortable managing their own finances.
Right. In the book, she talks about two fundamental truths. So I just want to read this one, and then I want to pass it back to you to just kind of dissect that for us. But the fundamental truth number one, she says, you don't need a lot of money to begin. So many women I meet fool themselves into thinking that if they don't have a lot of money, there's not much they can do. That's simply not true. I've talked to teachers, bookkeepers, secretaries, people whose income were fairly low on the pay scale, yet over time, they built sizable net worths. Indeed, the women you will meet in this book run the gamut on the economic scale. Some are quite wealthy, but the majority, however, have modest means. Yet regardless of their cash flow, they became savvy investors. Tracy.
Absolutely. Well, I'm gonna talk about my grandmother right here, because my grandmother never made much money in her life. And she always said, it's not what you make, it's what you keep. And a lot of women feel like they have to have thousands of dollars to get started, so they never start. You can actually open up a Roth IRA with as little as $10 a month. So it doesn't take a whole lot. Just start where you are. The bottom line is just start. When my grandmother passed away, she had CDs all over the place. And I'm not talking about music CDs. I'm talking about bank CDs, certificates of deposits. And this is a woman who never made much money in her life. So it's not what you make, it's what you keep.
So let's talk about your grandmother for a second. And I think it's just such a sweet story. How did she, with limited education, limited means, come to know and apply the fundamental principle of, not so much what you make, but what you keep?
That's a great question, Luana, because I actually asked my grandmother that. She only had a fifth grade education, and she experienced tragedy after tragedy after tragedy. And she said to me, when she was 35 years old, she realized that one day she was going to get old and that she needed to start preparing for her old age while she was young. And she just started saving her money and just religiously would just start saving her money. And she was the go-to person in my family for money. Whenever someone got into a bind and needed money, she was the go-to person. A woman who didn't have the type of education that most people have, but she was a master of her money.
That's amazing. And as you said, she woke up and realized, okay, I'm going to get old one day. Then what? And so often, many are, I like to call it, just tiptoeing through life, enjoying the now, which is okay, but not planning for the future. The story of the ant and the grasshopper, right? It's a very similar mindset. And the frightening thing, Tracy, is the average age for a woman at widowhood is 59 years old. 59 is very young. And
Yes.
then when you're looking at now what the pandemic has caused, the widows are actually a little bit younger. So we're living longer, right? Or we're going to experience most people, most women will either be experiencing managing their own financial household. Either it's by choice, it's your choice to live independently, or tragically by death or divorce.
Absolutely. Which is why it's so imperative that we pay ourselves first. That is one of the greatest things that any of us can do to build wealth, is to pay ourselves first. And like I said earlier, treat it like a monthly bill. It's so important.
Now, I want to be a devil's advocate. Someone may say, well, Tracy, I hear you, but you just don't understand. I'm a single mom. I'm not making much. I would save if I could, but I can't afford to. What would
You
you say to
know,
that woman?
I would say to that woman, you might have to consider picking up a side job. You may have to get a side hustle, is what the young people call it. Another thing you can do, if you are a W-2 employee, consider adjusting your withholdings. And just by with adjusting your withholdings, you can potentially see a few $100s back into your paycheck every month. Instead of it being in Uncle Sam's bank account, it can be in your bank account. Adjust those withholdings. Pick up a side job. Take your lunch to work. If you're eating out for lunch every day, take your lunch to work. I know a lot of people are working from home now, but if you're working in the office, consider taking your lunch.
Right. It's the little things. Now, I know some people may look at you, Tracy, or even the author, Barbara Stanny, and say, okay, you guys have it all together. Like with Barbara, her father was Richard, the R and H and R Block, right? So there is already this financial legacy. You, Tracy, have this financial legacy from your grandmother. And someone may say, well, you were lucky. I don't have that. I didn't have parents or grandparents to guide me or set an example. How am I going to do this? How am I going to find this information? How am I going to find mentors and coaches that can help me even understand how to even create a budget?
Well, you can reach out to a financial professional. You don't have to do this alone. You can certainly subscribe to financial blogs, start listening to podcasts about money, read books about money. You can go on Eventbrite and register for free seminars about money. This is 2022. There's something called YouTube University. You can go on YouTube, go to YouTube University, and just learn. There's so much information out there. With it being 2022, we really have no excuse.
That's true. And it is 2022, but the reality tells us, Tracy, and you and I've talked about this a lot. Women don't like talking about money. As you have told us, they rather talk about death than money. Why?
Yes.
What is the phobia? Why do we feel like we have to cloak ourselves in secrecy instead of just sharing our information or reaching out with with a request for support?
Well, a lot of it is internal. A lot of it has to do with messages that we heard growing up. We've all heard money doesn't grow on trees. Money is the root of all evil. Don't talk about money. Don't tell anybody how much money you make. It's impolite to talk about money. So we have those feelings, that we grew up with, that money is just not something that you're supposed to talk about. But we have to talk about it. If we don't want to be a financial statistic, we have to talk about it. We have to find a community, like the Celebrate You community. We have to find a community of women that we can trust, that we can reach out to for support. because you don't have to do this alone. Reach out for support. Reach out to other women that you trust, that you can talk to.
I want to read this because one of the things that I found, and I think you would agree that those of us that are very passionate about this message about money, where we want to see as many people win as possible, it's because we've either seen something or we've experienced something. And it's like, we don't want anyone to have to go through that. And she says, it's called The Awakening. She said, then one day my carefully constructed illusions abruptly disintegrated into dust. I went to the bank's ATM to take out money, not more than $60. And a message on the screen told me I didn't have enough cash in my account to cover the withdrawal. I was startled. This was never supposed to happen. I put the plastic in again, then again. Please, I prayed, this must be a mistake. But the machine insisted it was right. I knew something was terribly wrong.
Can you imagine the daughter of H&R, the R in H&R Block, not being able to get $60 out of the ATM machine because she let her husband handle everything, thinking that he was handling the finances properly, and lo and behold, can you imagine? And not only that, Lawana, how about she got a tax bill for, I think it was like $500,000 that she had to pay, not knowing any of this was going on. So that's why it's so important for women to know what's going on. We cannot leave everything up to our husbands, our significant other. We have to know what is going on.
You know, I was, as you were just talking, I was reflecting on my mom, even though I mentioned that she worked later in life. But because my father was in the military, he sent her to a school, a business school, to get specifically some financial courses. And she was asking him, well, why do I have to handle this? That's what you do. He said, because I'm gone a lot, TDY, and I'm deployed. And what if I don't come back?
What a smart man.
He's like, you need to know how to manage this household and take care of my kids.
What a smart man. Wow.
And she did that and still does. I mean, they work together, but, at 86 and he's 91, he said his greatest surprise was when he retired. He decided to retire at 60. And at his retirement party, she stood up to announce to all their guests that she had paid off the house. That they were completely debt-free.
That's amazing.
Right. But she told me, had he not pushed and was persistent, for that generation, she said, I was comfortable just, letting him take care of everything.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because that's the generation, that she grew up in. And a lot of women still have that, that mindset today. Let the man handle it. Wow. Kudos to your dad. That is awesome.
Yes.
That he did that. And Lawana, most people will never pay off their house.
I know. Being in the mortgages, I'm amazed. I was talking to one client, and she's been in her home for 35 years. So she wanted to refinance because she said she wanted to make some home improvements. Mm-hmm. I assumed her home was free and clear. I'm like, great. She still owes 25 years on the home because she has just been refinancing and refinancing and refinancing, pulling money out. There's not much equity in it. And I thought, oh my gosh, after owning something for that long, and, she just doesn't have the value in it to really do what she needs to do at this point.
But I see that a lot. Most people will never pay off their homes because of the habitual refinancing over and over and over. I'm so proud of your dad for what he did for your mom, especially in his generation.
Yes.
He was really thinking ahead. That is absolutely wonderful.
So I want to ask you, what was it about this book that attracted you? Did someone recommend this book to you, or Did you just happen to see it and you flipped through it and it just resonated? Because I know you mentioned that you got this about 10 years ago, right?
Yes, I was actually at a conference. And one of the ladies at the conference asked me if I had read the book because she said she was just so enthralled with the book. And I said, no, I hadn't even heard of it at the time. So after she told me about it, I picked up a copy and it's just been on my mind and it has just really resonated with me ever since. And that was around, it's been a little bit over 10 years ago, but it's the one book that just really sticks out in my mind constantly because we all, grew up with this idea of Prince Charming, is going to come in and save us and take care of us. We all grew up with that. So,
what I loved about the book is even in your darkest financial hour, it's showing you that there is hope, that there is possibility. Like you said, she wasn't able to get $60 out of the ATM, had this tax bill in excess of $500,000. I mean, that's a lot of money. But she rose above it. She was able to overcome that. And sometimes we get so crippled by, I've got 20,000 in credit card bills or whatever it is. And I'm not minimizing what you owe, but just imagine the stress of having that much debt on you that you didn't even know about.
And not once, but twice, because there was another time in the book where I think it had to do with, she received another tax bill that had to do with.
Yeah, here it's right here. It says this time.
A tax shelter.
A tax shelter. $643,000 for a tax shelter my husband had gotten us into in 1979, which had been declared illegal. I'd never heard of this tax shelter, but my signature was on the partnership agreement. No surprise, I'd signed without questioning anything. Now my ex-husband, unreachable in Israel, I was the one who had to pay back the original investment plus the killer fines and penalties. And how often, let's not even talk about the marital component, but how often do we go and we purchase something and there's a contract?
And don't read the fine print.
No, right. It's like we trust someone to tell us what it says, if they are even going to explain it, and then we sign it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because we don't take the time to read all of that. We just assume that it's to our benefit.
Right. And that's the frightening thing. So when you can get into, and let's just look at credit cards, right? Depending on what kind of rate you have, and your rate is tied to prime. And now we see what's happening with what the feds are doing. Now what was affordable may no longer be affordable, but you signed a contract. I mean, believe it or not, yet that credit card is a contract. You're saying, I agreed to borrow money at this rate and I agreed to repay it on time. And if not, I may be penalized, or they can call everything due in full. And most people don't realize that is in their right, that they can say, in 2007, 2008, that's what a lot of people experience, is that liberty that the banking industry took to, even though they got a bailout, they didn't pass on that favor or grace to their clients.
Absolutely. And they can raise those rates at any time. Anytime. Something I did for my mother when I was in Florida recently is I called several of her creditors and I asked them to lower her interest rate. Some of her credit cards were 25% interest, 27%, 29%. I was just going through her bills and I said, Mom, we got to do something about this. So I started calling her creditors and asked them to reduce her interest rate. Because what people are paying in interest is just, it's highway robbery on those credit cards.
Yeah, I think it's modern day loan sharking.
And you can always pick up the phone and call and ask for a lower rate. Let them know you want a lower rate, or you're going to transfer your balance somewhere to another company.
And that's a good tip, Tracy. So many people don't realize that you can have that conversation, and that's where being comfortable talking about money. And if you've been a good client and paying on time, why not? The worst they can say is no.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I was able to get one of her cards down from 29% to 14%.
Wow.
Just by picking up the phone and calling. And
That's
if
amazing.
they say no, call back and get somebody else. Ask for a supervisor.
Exactly. It's like, do you know how long we've been with you? Exactly. With this book for you, what were like 2 or 3 of the most, I guess, poignant points that you walked away with?
You know, one of the points that I found to be interesting was not waiting until there's a crisis. Don't wait until you're forced to start saving money. Don't wait until, there's a job loss or something tragic happens before you start taking your finances seriously. It's so important that we start today. What is it about that? There's a quote about a bamboo tree. The best time to plant a tree was 20. When is the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago? When is
Yes.
the next best time? Today?
Yes.
It was so important when I read that about, not waiting for a crisis. And also the fact that you don't have to have a fortune to start saving money. Start where you are. If you can only save $1 per day, at the end of the month, you'll have $30. Just start.
Now, would you recommend that same philosophy for someone who is, let's say, in their mid-50s and is now divorced and has the aspiration to retire in 10 years, but they really don't have enough saved to maintain their standard of living?
Which means they will more than likely have to work a little bit longer. One thing I recommend is contacting Social Security just to kind of see where you are. And that'll give you a gauge as to whether or not you can retire at whatever age you choose or desire, or whether or not you need to work an extra 5 years or 10 years.
I want to ask you this question because I know you were prior corporate, college graduate, prior corporate, but now you're independent, you're self-employed. And even though the underlying messages are the same, right? Starting now, pay yourself first, being consistent. What are some things that an individual who's self-employed really needs to pay close attention to that a W-2 employee may not have to stress as much about?
Taxes. Make sure you're paying those quarterly taxes. Make sure that the money that you're making sure that you're allocating a certain percentage to pay your taxes. Because a lot of people get into trouble with that, because when they were a W-2 employee, they were accustomed to their employer paying taking out those taxes for them. And now, as being self-employed, that's something you have to be responsible for and take care of so that you don't get in trouble with the IRS. That is very important. And you can consider a SEP IRA or a 401k for self-employed individuals. So that's something you can consider as well.
And that's good advice. And this is, again, it just shows you how important it is to not try to know everything, because that can be a burden in and of itself and can create just stress and other physical ailments. So if you surround yourself with those experts, with people like Tracy Oriami, the How Money Works coach, to help guide and point you in the right direction, then believe it or not, it does take a little stress off. It does lighten that load a little bit because you don't feel like you're all alone, right, Tracy?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's like I said earlier, you don't have to do this alone. Reach out to a financial professional, reach out to the Celebrate You community. There's so many talented women that can help you, that can hold your hand. You don't have to do this alone. And you don't have to have a whole bunch of money. You can open up a Roth IRA for as little as $10 a month.
Wow. Well, it doesn't get much better than that. So,
Absolutely.
Tracy, I cannot believe we're almost out of time, but as
Already?
always, I love to give our audience time with just the guests. So I'm going to take myself down and allow you to share any other pearls of wisdom that you have to offer and how individuals can contact you and or work with you. Okay?
Okay, thank you. I am Tracy Oriami, and it's been such a pleasure to speak with you this evening. I want to share something with you that my grandmother said, and that is make sure that you look out for your future self. Look out for your future self because there's an 85-year-old inside of you who's hoping and praying that you are going to make decisions today that will benefit her or him tomorrow. I want you to consider this. The average person is going to work, on average, about 90,000 hours over their lifetime. How much of those 90,000 hours are you going to put aside for yourself? Because most people are only putting away a fraction of that for themselves. So think about your future self. Think about your 85-year-old self that's counting on you, that's hoping and praying that you're going to make decisions today that they will benefit from tomorrow. And it's never too late to start. Just start where you are and reach out to a financial professional, such as yours truly. I can be reached on Facebook at Tracy Hill Oriami. I can be reached on Instagram at Tracy Oriami. I'm also on LinkedIn, Tracy Hill Oriami. And you can also find me in the Celebrate You community here on Facebook. So that's what I'd like to leave with you today. Just start where you are. And I want to say this, Maria Shriver, former First Lady of California, she surveyed women who were on the brink of poverty. And she asked those women, what was their biggest regret? And the majority of those women said they regret that they did not learn more about money. So it's so important that we educate ourselves, that we read books, listen to podcasts, reach out to a financial professional so that you can have the lifestyle that you envision. Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much, Tracy. Tracy Oriami, the How Money Works coach, is here with us today, sharing her recommended read by Barbara Stanny, Prince Charming Isn't Coming. And the one thing that Barbara Stanny said is, when we dispel the myth that someday our Prince Charming will come, that then becomes the most important financial decision we will make. So that's where we're saying, I'm taking control. I'm steering this ship. I'm ensuring that I'm doing what I need to today, as your grandmother said, take care of my future self, right? Make sure that she's happy when she looks back.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So when you're making those decisions today, make sure you think about your future self.
Yes, yes. Well, Tracy, thank you so much. It has been such a pleasure having you on, having you a part of the Celebrate You community, and just all of the tips and tools and strategies that you give not only to our community but to women and men around the world. I salute you. It's a heavy cross to bear, but someone's got to do it, and you're saying I'm here. And so we appreciate you and all that you're doing. And I just ask that those of you that are just wondering, what do I need to do? This isn't about judgment. This is a no judgment zone. The worst thing you can do is do nothing. So if you just want to have the conversation, contact Tracy at howmoneyworks.com/Tracy Oriomi. As she mentioned, reach out to her on social media, Tracy Hill Oriomi. She's easy to connect with, a gentle soul, easy to talk to, but a financial powerhouse. You definitely want to have her in your, I don't want to say in your back pocket, but just walking beside you and whispering in your ear so that you can make, as she said, the best decision for your life to build the life that you want to have. It's all about you. And we only have one life to live. So let's live it to the fullest, right, Tracy?
That's right. To the absolute fullest. We only get one shot at this.
Well, you can purchase the book by Barbara Stanny, Prince Charming Isn't Coming, on Amazon. And again, we thank you all for joining us for another edition of Power of the Pen. I'm Luana Bradford. You can follow us on E360 TV, Apple TV, Samsung TV, Roku, and on Facebook. We will be back next week with another special guest and another amazing book. Until then, continue to read, elevate your voice, and remember that when your vision intersects with opportunity, success is inevitable. Until next time, bye everyone. Bye, Tracy.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Luana.